It's once again, good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 p.m. Moscow time, and we are ready to start our international conference for young scholars, international trade facing the challenges of digital and post-COVID economy, BRICS perspectives. My name is Irina Korgan, and I'm an acting director of the Asia Strategy Center at the Institute of Economics, Russian Academy of Sciences. And I'm going to be your moderator throughout this conference. And since we are ready to start, I would like to invite Dr. Mikhail Lobanov, Deputy Director of the Institute of Economics, Russian Academy of Sciences, to open the conference. Please, Mikhail, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear participants of the conference, I would like to welcome you and wish you a successful conference. It's very important that the issues of BRICS countries' development represent the field of interest of young scientists. It instills the confidence that the achievement of the senior researchers will be developed by the young scientists, young researchers in the nearest future. The Institute of Economics, Russian Academy of Sciences, organized several events, was a co-organizer of several events dealing with BRICS. One of this event was in March 2021, the conference on post-COVID recovery. And our scientists and administration representatives took part in different activities dealing with BRICS. For example, well-known BRICS Academic Forum in 2021, this year in online form, and several years in offline form in Johannesburg and Fuzhou. And that's why we're very pleased that Institute of Economics is again a co-organizer of such an influential international activity. And I would like to welcome our co-organizers, the Department of World Economy of St. Petersburg State University and Russian National Committee on BRICS Research. And this is a good opportunity from my side to thank the administration of the administration and definitely the researchers, the representatives of the Center for Russia Strategy in Asia of Institute of Economics, Russian Academy of Sciences. And we are really pleased that your activity helps us to develop our international agenda dealing with scientific activities. Dear participants, once again, wish you a successful conference and wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lobanov. And now I'm really happy to introduce Professor Sergei Suturin, who represents the Department of World Economy at the St. Petersburg State University, WTO chairholder, who has been doing research on a wide range of issues regarding BRICS economy. And Professor Suturin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Irina, very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, let me start with expressing my deep and sincere gratitude to Institute of Economics in Russian Academy of Science for initiating this very interesting, I'm sure it will be very interesting and fruitful event, as well as for inviting us, Department of World Economy at St. Petersburg State University, to participate in the event as co-organizers. Well, from my perspective, a conference of young researchers, this one as well as other conferences, they first of all have their obvious peculiarities, and at the same time they are substantial and very significant component of academic life in Russia and all around the globe, in fact. Indeed, on the one hand, direct and full-scale dialogue, interaction of young scientists due to what I would call relatively high homogeneity of the participants from the point of view of their age, provides better chances for an open dialogue, open discussion with new, interesting, challenging, controversial ideas being introduced to the forum. On the other hand, for people of my generation, in that sense, I would echo what Dr. Labanov just said. It's always a very serious joy to see that there are representatives of younger generation who will continue our efforts and will successfully promote and advance scientific investigation. As for the subject of the conference, from my perspective, it's both extremely interesting and a very significant one. It integrates basically several tracks of research. Each of them has its own logic and could be developed separately, but in that case, they are put together. International trade, interaction between BRICS countries, development of BRICS countries taken separately, digitalization, shock of pandemic. As I said, each of these topics is worth investigating by itself. At the same time, taken together, they definitely should generate some kind of synergy effects and provide opportunities to find interesting trends and solutions to the issues. More than that, in the title of the conference, we see reference to post-COVID economy from the point of view of current pandemic situation, at least in Europe, in Russia in particular. It implicitly directs our attention towards future possible trends and developments, and that is twice as interesting from my point of view. So to conclude, in order to not to spend much of your valuable time, I would like, first of all, to wish all the participants interesting and fruitful discussion. And I also would like to invite you, representatives of young academia, to submit your articles, your papers to the journal we publish on a regular basis, quarterly, at the St. Petersburg State University, and that is specially dedicated to economic issues, a special series. And we would be happy to have your papers. Well, once again, thank you very much for inviting me as a head of the department and department to be a co-organizers, and all the best, successful, fruitful discussion to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Suturin. It's always a pleasure to have you as our partner co-organizer, and really we learn a lot from this collaboration. Thank you again. We also should have Professor Toloraya, who represents both Russian Academy of Sciences and the Russian National Committee on BRICS Research. But due to change in his schedule, Professor Toloraya will be joining us later. And since that, we are ready to start our first session. And as a co-moderator of the first session, I would like to introduce Dr. Alexander Koval, who will be co-chairing the first session with me. Alexander is an associate professor at the Department of World Economy, St. Petersburg State University of Russia. Welcome, Alexander. Before we proceed, I would like to announce a few housekeeping issues, how we are going to work throughout this session and the next session. We have quite a considerable number of reports, and in order to give everyone an equal opportunity to express their views and ideas, in my opinion, we will give 10 minutes per presentation for each report, and we will keep our questions until the end of the session. So we first listen to presentations, and then we, depending on how much time we have, we will accept questions. But please do not hesitate to use chat to ask your questions to presentators or to anyone you are interested in, because chat is a very useful opportunity to communicate. And so without further ado, let's start. And Alexandra, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Irina. I'm very happy to be here and just to start our session. And I would like to ask for the first presentation, Dr. Zhu Zhao, the Deputy Director of BRICS Research Center of the University of International Business and Economics in China, who would like to give a report on the analysis of China outbound investment in digital sector and perspective for BRICS member countries' digital trade growth.
Dr. Zhu, are you joining us? Well, if he's not here, maybe we proceed. Alexander, how do you think?
Yes, yeah, I think we proceed because I do not, I also do not see him, but perhaps he joined us with another name, but not. So let's go the next, and I hope maybe we will have a presentation later. So then Ms. Arshi Turkai, Associate Fellow of Observer Research Foundation in India, who makes the presentation on multilateral trans-regional rulemaking on digital trade and from Indian perspective, please.
Thank you, Alexandra. So my topic, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this conference. It is a pleasure. So my topic is on multilateral and trans-regional rulemaking in digital trade from an Indian perspective. So the COVID-19 pandemic has, of course, resulted in a slowdown in economic activity across the globe. In its forecast, the WTO indicated a clear fall in world trade, perhaps the highest fall since the Great Depression. So while national and global lockdowns, social distancing norms, and export restrictions and prohibitions have led to a visible contraction in goods, on the other hand, the pandemic has led to a surge in e-commerce and accelerated digital transformation. So with businesses and consumers going digital, this has raised e-commerce's share of global retail trade. So if reliance on digital services increases, there are several implications for India. Many Indian information and technology companies will benefit from growing global demand for digital business and provision of digital services. However, there is an extremely high market dominance by a few large companies in ICT and digital services. So this market is dominated by companies like Microsoft and Facebook, and this dominance is likely to continue if the world is driven by digital services and technologies. Market power and market concentration of these companies may increase, and this has widespread implications ranging from privacy, data security, entry barriers, and growing inequality in business and society. So, of course, intellectual property rights will become more critical, and more deglobalization and increased emphasis on national self-reliance will highlight current trends. For intellectual property rights specifically, if services become more dominant, and if physical movement of goods are replaced by movements of data designs and ideas, then intellectual property rights will become more important. Generally developed countries have become more active users of IPRs, So countries like India need to be careful about the uses and misuses of IPRs in international trade. So TRIPS plus measures which are above and beyond what Indian IPR laws provide for could be problematic. So these changes are rapid, but are currently happening in a vacuum where there aren't any globally accepted rules governing digital trade. So plurilateral trade agreements such as the CPTPP and the RCEP have chapters on digital trade, but they differ slightly on, say, things like localization of computing facilities and cross-border transfer of information by electronic means. So briefly on what has happened at the multilateral level, which is the WTO. So in 1996, the Ministerial Conference in Singapore, members decided to expand world trade in IT products under the aegis of WTO. To formalize this, a few members signed the Information Technology Agreement, which India is a signatory of. During the Geneva Multilateral Conference, members adopted a declaration on global e-commerce, which called upon the General Council to establish a comprehensive work program. So while in December 2019, some member countries wanted to push for a plurilateral negotiation on e-commerce, many developing countries and LDC, including India and South Africa, were in favor of continuing the current mandate of the work program. So India's focus on building a trade architecture for digital economy is one which assists Indian businesses and consumers engaged in international digital trade. The government advocates for a global trading environment that supports digitization of trade, builds trust and confidence in the online environment, and also helps address the huge digital divide among countries. So there is a need for policy space for developing countries who still have to finalize laws around digital trade and data. So naturally, there have been several contentious issues on digital trade rulemaking. Particularly, there's a divergence between developed and developing countries on what these rules should comprise of. So one of the most contentious issues is, of course, data localization. The Indian government's inclination to enact data localization rules have been articulated in multiple government documents. The 2019 Personal Data Protection Bill in India provides for this, and the Indian government has given 4 stated objectives for pursuing data localization, which is firstly to secure faster and better access to personal data for law enforcement. Secondly, to increase economic growth and boost employment. Thirdly, to prevent foreign surveillance, and fourthly, to better enforce data protection laws. So as of 2019, there are over 34 countries that have adopted data localization measures, including China, Germany, Russia, Vietnam, and Malaysia. So these norms do differ across the board in terms of the level of restriction that they place. And while WTO agreements, especially the General Agreement on Trade and Services, do not explicitly prohibit data localization measures, there is an increasing body of scholarship encouraging the WTO to include localization as a trade restrictive measure. So provisions prohibiting data localization have become increasingly common in recent for trade agreements. More and more countries are willing to accept such provisions in their regional and bilateral trade agreements. For instance, the CPTPP prohibits a party from requiring a covered person to use or locate computing facilities in that party's territory as a condition for conducting business. A second contention would be what rules would govern cross-border data flows. So India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said that India is not in a position to accept a concept that promotes uninhibited cross-border data flow. Regarding the concept that is data free flow with trust, he is of the opinion that it is grossly inadequate to address our current concerns on data access. So this particular concept seeks to eliminate restrictions on cross-border transfer of information by electronic means, including personal information and storing data in foreign servers. The idea was first proposed by Japan, but it currently goes against India's draft national e-commerce policy, which has proposed regulating cross-border data flows, locating computing facilities within India to ensure job creation, and setting up a dedicated data authority for issues related to sharing of community data. The third contentious issue would be custom duties. Various developing countries and least developed countries are against a permanent moratorium on custom duties due to potential tariff losses. However, most developed countries favor its continuation, pressing for free and open digital trade. So India and South Africa were keen on urging a review of this moratorium on imposing custom duty on electronic transmissions so that developing countries can generate more revenues. Lastly, there would be another contentious issue in such rulemaking on digital trade about whether we categorize this as goods or services. So this would have implications on which WTO agreement applies to such trade, whether it is the GATT or if it is the GATS. So these differences highlight India's perspectives on what rules it hopes for in governing digital trade, both at the plurilateral and multilateral level. If an agreeable framework is to be reached, which reflects the concerns of developing countries and allows them to sufficiently frame policies to regulate digital trade. So in this case, cooperation between BRICS countries, which may be more aligned towards governance norms and rulemaking that reflect developing countries' interests, will help in setting up a framework that is more reflective of Indian interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirke, for your very interesting insight into India's position on digital trade, e-commerce, and on various agreements that regulate this domain. And I believe that our first speaker from China has joined us now. And so I'm pleased to invite Dr. Zhu Jiaoyi, a Deputy Director at the BRICS Research Center, University of International Business and Economics in China, with his presentation on the topic, the analysis of China's outbound investment in digital sector and perspective for BRICS member countries' digital trade growth. The floor is yours, Dr. Zhao.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sorry for being late. Just 5 minutes ago, we have problem with the electricity in my apartment, so I tried to fix it. That's why I was late for about 15 minutes. I really apologize for being late. And first of all, thanks a lot for inviting me to join this session. And actually, it's my third time to join this session during Russian year in BRICS. And first of all, I would like to share a PPT presentation I prepared for my speech, but I found I have a little bit problem of sharing with you, so I need to use a snapshot of slides. Can you see the slides now?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. So I will share one by pictures, not by a whole presentation. First of all, and the topic I will share with you guys today will be the analysis of China's outbound investment in digital sector and a perspective for BRICS member countries' digital trade growth. So my topic will be divided into 3 parts. The first will be about China's digital economy in recent 2 years after the COVID-19 from the beginning of 2020. The second part will be the existing cooperation in digital sector between BRICS member countries. The third will be the perspective or the proposals to strengthen BRICS member countries' digital trade. Okay, first of all, let's see the first part. I'm sorry, I have to share again and again because the slide does not work. First of all, I think this is well recognized. Not one country, not one continent, but all countries in the world. We and all people from different countries, we have all benefited from the progress of digitalization, especially during the hardest time of the pandemic. For example, in China, because of the pandemic came out from China in January 2020, all shops and all schools were shut down. So we have no choice but to use online educational system and e-commerce to conduct ordinary life. So I think after almost 2 years live, or we also call virtual life online, no one can leave these applications online. So digitalization is not only the trend happening in China or other BRICS countries, but also in the rest of the world. Next slide, sorry. Okay. The first part will be about China's digital economy. China uses digital economy as a new driver for growth. First of all, we can see that according to the statistics we collected from China Academy of Information and Communication Technology. Actually, this academy belongs to China's Ministry of Telecommunication and Industry. According to their statistics, China's digital economy kept a high growth rate of about 9.7% in 2020. And this year in 2021, we expect a growth of about even higher, 10%, because more and more end users are coming, and more customers are to the life online. So the activities online are becoming bigger and bigger. For companies in China, if you don't know how to digitalize your business, you cannot survive. So that's why the growth rate will be even higher in this year compared to last year. The second point is about the whole scale. The digital economy scale hit about 39.2 trillion yuan. That's about $6.1 trillion last year. And that number accounts for about 38.6% of the GDP. And this year, the percentage will be more or less the same, about 40%. And actually, there are many different criteria. This criteria is according to CICT, which is mentioned in point 1. Okay. The third part is about China has built the world's largest optical fiber and 4G and 5G mobile broadband networks, which means that China's infrastructure is advanced enough to promote the whole digitalization process in China's economy. And also, we can see that with its digital economy ranking second in the world, which means after US, China has highlighted the digital economy development in its 14th five-year plan. The 14th five-year plan started this year. So this year will be the starting year for the five-year plan. And according to the five-year plan, China's digitalization process will reach about 55 to 60% of the whole GDP by the end of 2025. And also we see a very important trend, that is Chinese companies are encouraged not only by the government, but also by the private sector to tap opportunities in the overseas digital market in the following decade. And most of the opportunities for Chinese digital companies will come from One Belt One Road initiative countries, and also countries like Russia, India, Brazil, these BRICS member countries. Okay, I will turn to next slide. I think you can see on the right side the jointly released by Chinese government, which was issued on July in 2021. And this is quite new. And this is jointly issued by China's MOFCOM, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Internet, Ministry of Central Government Office for Internet Security, and the Ministry of Industry and Telecommunication. According to this guideline, more efforts will be made to enable domestic digital economy enterprises to accelerate their deployment overseas. Overseas, again, I would like to define mainly in two areas, the One Belt One Road and the BRICS, okay? And what are encouraged to going abroad? Research and development centers for digital companies, and product design centers, cooperation with overseas technology companies in fields such as big data, 5G, and artificial intelligence as well. And except for such kind of jointly guidelines issued by Chinese government, the financial sector of the Chinese government also issued a series of financial supporting regulations and policies to support Chinese companies going abroad, which will be a big boom to increase digital trade inside the BRICS member countries. Next slide, I'm sorry. Okay, so for BRICS member countries, which country excels in what? Let's see, Brazil is quite well in IoT, Internet of Things, in the industrial internet, which means 4.0 industry. And also Brazil has a very huge domestic market, big potential to whole Latin America as well, a big potential, and also the bigger access to whole Latin American market. Russia has the highest internet penetration rate. Russia is also very good at cybersecurity, AI expertise, or even hacking, right? You have the top hackers. Hackers are also like internet experts in the world. And India is good at software, outsourcing service, and e-commerce, and also a very big potential market for other digital companies to explore. For South Africa, it has big potential to the whole Africa, the access to a whole African continent, and the e-commerce is also relatively developed, and also South Africa has a huge market. Next slide, sorry. So我在这儿开会呢，对。Okay, so what are the digital cooperation milestones among BRICS member countries. First of all, in 2015, a proposal was set up among BRICS member countries to build an open, united, safe internet. And this is actually the first proposal to promote digital cooperation among member countries. The second milestone is on November 2016, by BRICS telecommunication ministerial meeting to promote the digital partnership between digital member countries. This is the only partnership China has issued until now. And the third milestone was held in August 2017. An e-commerce cooperation proposal was made by BRICS Commerce ministerial meeting. I have 2 minutes left. Okay. The last milestone was on September 2017, a long-term, sustainable, stable development among BRICS through strengthened e-commerce and digital cooperation. This was achieved in Xiamen in China. I think I have 2 slides left. So for the last part, we can talk about proposal for BRICS digital trade growth. First of all, we have known each other better, and actually the analysis and the research on respective countries' digital economy is not enough. We need to build a deeper mutual or multiple understanding of respective digital economy inside us. That should be through information sharing, joint research projects, or joint working groups. And the second point will be to control lower non-tariff trade barriers or to control digital taxes. This is actually the major barrier to stop or to hamper BRICS member countries' digital trade growth. Okay, the second point is the major barrier. Third point is more friendly regulations, policies, national treatment standards for member countries. I think China is trying to set up more regulations, welcoming other countries' digital companies into China. I know Chinese market is not open enough, but we are trying to welcome more other countries like Russian companies, Indian companies to China. This point should be followed by other member countries. So I also encourage you guys to follow on this part. The last 3 points will be balancing between digital sovereignty and the digital openness, joint financial support and funding programs. This is highly encouraged by Chinese government to fund joint programs. That's all for today, and thanks again for inviting me to join this session.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you very
Chu.
much. Yeah, we appreciate very much the time schedule, and thank you very much for the introduction of the Chinese view on digital trade development in BRICS. And I would like to ask for the next speakers, who also will introduce their report on e-commerce in China and its role in the post-pandemic economy. The report will be made by Ms. Daria Lebedeva, Research Fellow of the Center for Russia Strategy in Asia of Institute of Economics of Russian Academy, and Dr. Irina Horgun, who is a co-moderator today. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexander. I will give the floor to my colleague, Ms. Daria Lebedeva, who will share some insight from our research.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. Can you see my presentation now?
Yeah.
Today, me and my colleague, Dr. Irina Korgun, would like to share with you the preliminary results of our research, which is focused on e-commerce in China. Today, I'd like to discuss its current state, dynamic during the last 6 years, and major trends and challenges. The volume and importance of e-commerce in global trade are growing rapidly. China is already one of the largest players on the world's e-commerce market. We believe that the future development of global cross-border e-commerce will be highly influenced by China. Cross-border e-commerce or international e-commerce is a digital equivalent of foreign trade. It consists of transactions for goods and services which are sold digitally and delivered over traditional transit routes through ports, airports, and border crossings. Cross-border e-commerce includes B2B, B2C, and C2C markets. Our research is focused on B2C. According to the UNCTAD estimates, China is the third largest e-commerce seller and the first biggest retail e-commerce exporter in the world. On these diagrams, we can see that e-commerce in general and cross-border.
I'm sorry, we do not see diagrams.
Can you see the slide with that? You can't see the slide with diagrams.
We
now.
only see the slide, the first slide. So
you need to change your slides. You need to go down.
I changed my slide. I can see the slide with diagrams now.
okay,
Really? I
can share my screen once again. Yes.
No, that's right.
I'll try. Yeah, sorry. Yes. Can you see it now?
Yes. Yes.
Good. On these diagrams, we can see that e-commerce in general and cross-border were developing rapidly during the last 6 years. The annual growth rate was declining over the years, but still remains significant. If we compare the growth rates of general and cross-border e-commerce, we will see that cross-border e-commerce is rising faster than general. The slight decline of the growth trend doesn't change during the pandemic. Can you see the next slide now?
Yes.
Export and import, yes?
Yes. Export was fast. Yeah.
During the last 4 years, cross-border e-commerce export in China was growing much faster than import. As we can see on the diagram, the import growth rate was declining over the last years. In 2020, the major categories of export were unclassified goods, textiles, and electronics. Among the fastest growing categories were textiles, leather products, medical products, and equipment. As for import, the biggest and the fast growing categories were chemicals and related products, food, drinks, tobacco, and electronics. As for cross-border e-commerce destination structure, we can see some changes in major import and export partners of China during the last 5 years. In 2016, most of the partners were high-income developed countries. In 2020, 3 East Asian countries and Saudi Arabia became top export partners of China in cross-border e-commerce. According to our data, in 2020, BRICS countries are not among top partners of China. The accelerated growth of e-commerce in China was supported by several factors and comparative advantages. Developed domestic production base and significant supply of Chinese products, sufficient investments in e-commerce, rapid development of infrastructure, fast middle-class growth resulted in high domestic and foreign good demand. The COVID-19 pandemic was accelerated the development of e-commerce in China. Lockdowns left buyers and sellers little choice but to go online and advanced the e-commerce sector. The rapid growth attracted more government attention to the sector. And now we can observe two major trends, such as demonopolization of major e-platforms. We all remember recent Alibaba case, which resulted in fines against company, and greater government presence in the cross-border e-commerce regulation and development. Cross-border e-commerce is one of the top priorities on the Chinese policy agenda. Chinese government officials many times emphasize the importance of cross-border e-commerce as a way of fighting against poverty and revitalization of rural areas. According to the dual circulation strategy, domestic e-commerce strengthens the domestic consumption cycle, while cross-border e-commerce plays an important role in stabilizing foreign trade. Here, I'd like to mention major recent programs and policies for cross-border e-commerce in China. 14th Five-Year E-commerce Development Plan defines the strategy in the field of digital economy and e-commerce in China. Silk Road e-commerce program was established in 2016 as a part of Belt and Road Initiative, and since then has made positive progress. At present, China has signed the Silk Road e-commerce cooperation agreement with 22 countries, among them two BRICS countries, Russia and Brazil. The main directions of cooperations are e-commerce policy coordination between partner countries, promotion of business cooperation, construction of overseas warehouses, and others. It's worth saying that the cooperation was developing rapidly during the pandemic in the field of medical products. Cross-border e-commerce comprehensive pilot zones in cities are designed to stimulate high quality and high value-added export. It provides infrastructure and special tax regimes for in-zone companies. As part of customs clearance facilitation program, small and medium-sized enterprises can choose more convenient customs clearance channels for goods with a single ticket value. Though the governmental policy in the field of cross-border e-commerce is effective and gains significant results, there are many challenges for the future development. Among them, complex international and political environment, compliance with domestic and international requirements, data protection, digital security, logistics problems, and others. In conclusion, I'd like to emphasize that China has great potential to grow its presence in international e-commerce and become the world center of e-commerce. But the future development highly depends on effectiveness of governmental policy support in this field and geopolitical situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daria, for your very interesting and insightful presentation. Indeed, there are many challenges that not only China, but many countries in the world are facing with regard to digital trade and regulation of digital trade, as well as many others. Thanks again. And so it's time to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Tatiana Kazakevich, who is a master student at the Department of World Economy at St. Petersburg State University in Russia, and she'll deliver her presentation on the current trends in the development and tax regulation of cross-border electronic commerce in Russia. So, Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Okay, just 1 second. So I hope you see the slide, and yes, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to tell you about the current trends in the development and tax regulation of cross-border electronic commerce in Russia. I suppose that this topic is of high importance and really relevant for the further development of cross-border electronic commerce in Russia. And actually, my research is still in the progress, so I would love to hear probably some insights or proposals in our further discussion, if you have any. So first of all, I would love to mention that as in any other country, COVID-19 pandemic has played a key role in global economic development since the beginning of 2020. And of course, restrictions on international trade and the rupture of the production and global transport system during pandemic have become the leading reasons for the transformation of the national economies of many countries, including Russia, of course. But nevertheless, during the 2020, we may see that there will a decrease in the cross-border trade. Of course, it is largely connected with the stop of with the rupture of the production system and international trade. But nevertheless, we see that in the whole e-commerce market is growing, and it's growing really largely, and especially the domestic trade increased highly during the 2020 year. And I forgot to mention that, first of all, I would love to tell about the general trends, and of course, after I will tell about the regulation of e-commerce trade. And this slide represents how the online retail sales in 2020 year increased. And actually, we may see here, first of all, the first wave of pandemic. Like we may see high increase from February until April, and the second wave during the COVID-19 pandemic was from October to December, and largely it was driven by the internal sales, by the sales in the domestic market, while we may see that cross-border trade decreased. For instance, take the figures from March to April, and then we may see how highly the cross-border trade decreased. What else is important? The distribution by product category in the local and cross-border market. This is important to understand too, because we may see that in cross-border market and the same local market, almost the same categories are the main. It is clothes and digital and household appliances, and this actually influences on the average receipts by product. Sorry, the slide is in Russian, but it was very time consuming to translate it. And we may see that, for example, for clothes in the cross-border trade, it is here, it's like almost 12,000 rubles, which is considerably high, and the same we may see for the digital and household appliances. It is 10,000 rubles. But first of all, what is important here? This doesn't include the purchases from AliExpress, and AliExpress is one of not one of it is the major marketplace, international foreign marketplace in Russian market, because firstly, as was mentioned previously, and as you saw in the first diagrams, Russian e-commerce market is dominated by internal sales, not cross-border sales. But nevertheless, the AliExpress plays here the largest role, and among of them there are one more one more big company which is developing right now. This Shein is a fashionable company, which is a new competitor of AliExpress. And on the second place after AliExpress is the eBay. And yes, and now I would love to tell about the tax regulation of cross-border e-commerce in Russia. And first of all, in Russia, cross-border e-commerce industry operates within the framework of the Russian tax system, which is based on the tax code of the Russian Federation and international supranational agreement. And this is the agreement with the Eurasian, with the EIU countries. And actually it is important to understand it and to take it into account. And in Russia, the system which is used is a system of destination-based weight, but value-added tax, which is in the indirect tax. And this tax used not only in Russia, but almost in every country. It's like it is the most common way of which is applied in the cross-border trade and in the e-commerce. And yes, as I said, it is based on the principle of the place of destination, and it is go from the largely from the Eurasian Economic Union. And what is important is that today international trade is dominated by non-digital content, with digital products currently accounting for less than 1%. And the digital content is regulated by the Google tax. It is the VAT tax and direct tax used in Russia. And the supply of digital content is carried out in a similar way, and operation with which resemble in the essence of the export of electronic services. And this tax, largely in Russia, it is applied to such companies as, for example, Google, Apple, and for example, Airbnb. And this tax is usually used for marketing campaigns, for example, as you probably know, like for clicks. And there is given an opinion like how this tax works, and it's actually very primitive. So every time, for example, you buy music from the App Store, or just cloud storage from Google, so these companies make contributions to the budget from all transactions, and therefore the invoice they issue to us already contains the Russian VAT. And nevertheless, despite the decline in the share of cross-border electronic trade in Russia in 2020 compared to domestic e-commerce, this sales channel is popular among Russians, and on foreign internet sites where purchases are made by more than 40 million residents of Russia. But of course, there are reasons for the decline. First of all, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the second one is the reduction of the duty-free threshold for the import of goods for personal consumption. And this one is the most relevant as for me, and I will pay a lot of attention to that in the further discussion. And this duty-free threshold, so during the last year, it was discussed by Mikhail Mishustin on one of the meetings on e-commerce that it is necessary to make the threshold lower, and there is a need for synchronous reduction of this threshold. So for now, there is a threshold at which foreign companies which deliver products to Russia don't need to pay any taxes, any tariffs, and this threshold is 200 years. And the total weight of goods for personal use doesn't exceed 31 kilograms. But now, the EIU countries want to decrease this threshold, and this issue is highly promoted by the Russian government. First of all, it could increase the revenue of Russian government. And why is this promoted? First of all, because more than 80% of purchases abroad are in the segment from 100 to 2,000 rubles, which is nearly 22 years. We may see that 80% of purchases are 22 years, but the threshold are 200 years. So this builds some inequivalencies, for example, for Russian e-commerce retailers or companies which operate in Russian market, I mean the domestic ones. So they have disadvantages, and probably our government want to also to increase the market, to give impede for Russian companies to increase sales and trade. And so what are new proposals? So recently there was a meeting called the EIU Intergovernmental Council. It was on November 18, 19. And as information agencies inform us, from July 1st, 2022, the duty-free threshold will be proposed to be reduced to 100 years from January 1, 2023 to 50 years, and from January 1, 2024 to 20 years. And it is what I mentioned here, like this decision is based on the fact that more than 80% of purchases abroad are in the segment from 100 to 2,000 rubles. And it is also expected to introduce a fee of 1 year for shipments worth up to 20 years. But this is not the only one proposal which is designed by the Russian government and other EIU countries. Russian government also wants to build like logistic hubs. And the basic hypothesis is that buyer in the framework of cross-border trade will prefer to pay a little more due to the payment of rent and standard custom duty. So the buyer will get a chance to get the parcel, for example, in 1 or 2 days. But how I think the issue here, first of all, is that the main region in Russia for e-commerce purchases is Central region, and it is estimated like that the share of Central region for cross-border e-commerce trade is like 44%, and like almost all purchases are made from there. And these logistic hubs, of course, will be built near this central region, and it is actually was mentioned by the Mikhail Mishustin, and I think it will build many inequivalencies, and of course it will increase the transportation costs for the other region. So it won't be so profitable for other people living in our country who don't live in Central region, for example, to buy it. And of course, there are many opinions on that. Some say that lowering the threshold will not affect the current situation, because in Russia, as we already mentioned, 80% of purchases are made are cost, for instance, like 22 years. But other experts suppose that it will have really negative impact on consumers, and this will really increase the value of goods delivered to Russia, and it won't be so profitable to buy abroad. And of course, it will give some it will provide more problems for the post offices and more administrative expenses. So actually, I'm really confused about the situation, and I think that this issue is really relevant and demands further research. That is all for me. Thank you for your attention.
Tatiana, thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation about Russia. So we have some experience from and perspectives from India, China, and now Russia. And I would like to introduce the next presentation on manufacturing labor shortage in the digital economy, made by Mr. Tao Tu, Ph.D. student and specialist of the Department of Planning and Organization of the Education process from Lomonosov Moscow State University and Moscow School of Economics. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. So let me share my screen firstly. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, hello everyone. Glad to see you here. Now I'd like to share with you some of my opinion on the challenge of the international trade is facing due to the booming of the digital economy, which is the shortage of the manufacturing labors in the digital economy. So let's firstly see some overall numbers of the about the digital economy. According to the data from the China Academy of Information and Communication Technology, the total scale of the digital economy in the 2020 has reached to 32.6 trillion US dollars. And in the year 2020, the digital economy accounted for 43.7% of the total GDP of the world, and respectively 8%, 24%, and 44% accounted in the first, second, and the third industries. And in the BRICS countries, China has the largest scale of the digital economy, which is reached to $5 trillion, ranking the second in the world, just after the United States. This is a lifestyle and economy system, and the social management model formed in the industrial ages are changing. And the quarantine policies during the epidemic has forced online shopping, including live delivery, remote office, and the online education and some other service industries to explode in the digitalization. And compared to the negative GDP growth in the world, the digital economy has achieved a positive growth up to 3% in the year 2020. So I think the changes triggered by the academic will be an important take-off platform of the digital economy. So let's turn to the problem hidden under the prosperity of the digital economy, which is related to the supply side of the international trade. From the data of the Ministry of the Human Resource and the Social Security Department of China released the ranking of the 100 most lagging labors in the 2021. These 29 new adding kinds of a job, in which there's 20 of which are directly related to the manufacturing industries. So in the short term, it is caused by the large number of manufacturing orders shifting to China because China recovered their production earlier from the epidemic than the other countries. But in the long run, this is also because the lack of the labor in the manufacturing is the inevitable result of the changing of the age structure of the labor force, of the population. And the population aging of China is deepened, and the working age population is declining rapidly. So as data from the World Bank, it shows that the ratio of the number employed in the second industries to the total number of the labor force is decreasing just after the year 2012, while it in the service industries is keep increasing rapidly. But when we conduct some microeconomic analysis, we often overlook another reason, which is looting, or we call it the siphon from our manufacturing labor by the industry related to the digital economy, especially the end industry, the end side of the industry of digital economies, or we call it the plant economy. It is a new generation of the young people. They abandon the traditional ways of earning life, like working in factories or in manufacturing companies. Instead, they will choose some freer employment model. So the most typical, which is online platform economy or online platform career in the digital economy. So let's see 3 typical examples. And so the first is the press industries, or we call it food delivery or takeaway or live delivery industries. The data shows that by the end of the year 2019, so the number of employed in the China's express delivery industry exceeds 10 million, of which the number of the employees in the live delivery, or we call it food delivery services, reached to 7 million. Just in the first 2 months of the year 2020, there's 580,000 new workers joined in the food delivery services, in which there's 40% of which came from the manufacturing industries. And also the number of people engaged in the e-commerce has increased by 60% in the year 2020, reaching 77 million. And in addition, the number of the people engaged in the industries such as esports and webcasting and online literatures has almost doubled in the first quarter of the year 2020. So let's see some theoretical analysis. So it is generally believed that China's demographic dividend has begun to decrease after the year 2010. And the new digital platform economies and the international terminal services industries have lower skill requirement for the workers. And they observing a large amount of labors, resulting in labor shortage in the labor intensive manufacturing. So it also leads to the general labor shortage, and the wage of the workers will be rise until the new balance achieved. And the second is with regarding the industrial structures, the labor resources are usually shifted from the low productivity sectors to the high productivity sectors. And this for example, the transfer of the rural laborers to cities and working in the secondary industries, or we call it the manufacturing industries, is belong to we call it the Kuznets series or Kuznetization. But here the labor productivity of the end services is quite lower than the manufacturing industries, especially especially the above mentioned, because the platform economies or platform carriers of the digital economy. But the outflow of the labor from the manufacturing industry to the digital economies is we can call it the inverse Kuznetization. So this is some main attractive of the new digital careers for the young people. Here we found six reasons. They are located in the wages, the working conditions, the freedom of the work, and the education system, and non-traditional culture or ideas, and the degree of attention. So let's talk about the wage. Of course, the wage is the I think this is the most important reasons, because there's a 67.7% of the worker from the manufacturing industries. They select the wage as the first reasons they out from the manufacturing industries. So let's take the automobile assembly lines as an example. The line workers will usually get about 3.5% of the gross profit, while the couriers of several major international delivery platform can get more than half of the gross profit. So because the digital economy is benefiting from the national policies, and with the help of a new concept, the international platform economy can create more high quality, attractive capitals. And so during the expansion period, it is considered to seize the market without considering the loss. But the production model of the manufacturing industries, it is fixed, and it is very difficult to attract capitals without if there is no breakthrough innovations, and it is very difficult to attract some capitals, and also it's very difficult to increase the salaries of the employees. So it is not how attractive the digital economy or the platform economy companies are, but rather the income distribution method, the capital support method, or the financial management model without the consideration of the consequence. So the capital expansion is the main reason of the inversion of the labor productivity and the wage in the platform economy areas. So the transformation with the high-tech or high-value-added manufacturing industries is an invertible trend, but it is a long-term process, not short. The short-term profit-seeking capitals will interfere with the transformation of the process. It is not only difficult to promote the transformation of the manufacturing industries, but also make the manufacturing that has not yet transformed in an existential crisis. So most of the Chinese processing trade companies are still in the earlier stage of the transformation, and haven't been, the new technologies haven't been sufficient to replace the labors. So a large demand for labors will continue to exist. So in the post-epidemic era, will the digital economies, especially the platform economy, continue to prosper? And will the low-skilled laborers to be forced to return back to the manufacturing or industries? And do the labor skills meet the increasingly high technology skills requirement? And can labor-intensive enterprise be able to withstand the high labor cost and continue to survive? So all the issues is worth considering. And all this will be related to the stable transformation of China's industry and its position in the international trade. So in the post-epidemic era, so facing the impact of the digital economies, China manufacturing transformation process requires support from all aspects. And so here I list the three. The first is education. So this is more attention should be paid to vocational or technical education. And not everyone has to become an expert, but more people should become professional workers. And the second is a guide to capital to make it truly serve the industrial transformation and avoid a blind expansion of the capital. Of course, the most important thing is that the technology progress. As the main production factors, the technology progress will be the foundation of strengthening the manufacturing industries and also provide the solid foundation for the development of the digital economy. So thank you for watching.
Pardon me. Thank you very much for your very interesting and deep presentation. I have a few questions, but I'll keep them till discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I would like to introduce the last but not the least speaker in the first session, Ms. Ekaterina Andrianova, a Ph.D. student from Department of World Economy at St. Petersburg State University, and she'll present on the topic of digital trade of BRICS states, challenges and regulations. Please, Ekaterina, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for introduction and the opportunity to join the conference. Yes, I'd like to give a talk, just a moment, on challenges and regulations of BRICS digital trade. And I'll try to present it in a more illustrative way. So let me know if there is any problem with the sound or screen sharing. Meanwhile, I will start. In my presentation, I will try to cover such points like features and status of digital trade development in BRICS states, BRICS current approaches to e-commerce regulation, main barriers in digital trade, and existing initiatives and suggestions for future cooperation.
Katya, we are sorry, we see only the first slide. Is it okay?
One more time, please. The connection is not really good, and I'm sorry, not really clear.
We see only the first slide.
The
You
first.
show only the first slide, or you already are on the second?
I'm already on the third.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we see the first.
There is a problem. Maybe I will try to restart screen sharing. Does it work now?
We still see the first one.
There is a problem.
Екатерина, попробуйте перезапустить демонстрацию экрана.
What about now?
Now we see the first one.
Interesting. And now?
Yeah, now we see the second one.
That is great. The third one is clear or not now?
No.
No? Very strange. I'm sorry.
Maybe you just not make a full screen presentation, but just the
Oh, yes, let's try like that then.
Yeah, now we see the third one.
Okay. I didn't find that. Well, I'm sorry for this technical problem. Well, I stopped saying that digital trade is currently very relevant topic for discussion, especially in emerging countries and their academic and official circles, as well as business circles. And talking about BRIC countries, it seems to be relevant to say that the growth rate of e-commerce and BRICS before the pandemic was about 20% on average, and for China, this rate was even twice higher. Almost twice higher. And now these processes of trade development are accelerated by COVID situation in the world. And it explains the necessity to support the discussion about its future prospects and development. But regarding that positive trends, it's also necessary to point out that there are difficulties and problems which BRICS states face on their path of digital development, and most of them are explained mainly by their diversity. On this slide, you can see main indicators which illustrate the diversity in a very clear manner, starting from the size of population and the share of internet users in BRICS countries. Well, among problems, I would divide them in two big blocks. The first one, as I mentioned, caused by diversity between BRICS members, and the second one is the diversity of BRICS approaches to considering international governance in this sphere. Among common problems also such can be mentioned as lack of data exchange, logistics infrastructure problems, and blank spaces in regulation network. Except common problems, there are of course individual problems that are faced by every BRICS country. Thus, for instance, Brazil has most problematic and beautiful customs and tax procedures. South Africa has problems with its payment system. It still doesn't have its own payment system, and logistic problems. For China, the most relevant problem is the fact that its regulation system can't keep up with such a rapid growth of international and inside digital trade. As well as all BRICS countries face language barriers in the way of their convergence and further integration. So next slide shows the ICT, Information and Communication Technology Development Index. The rates all over the world, and you can also see the rates for every BRICS economy. And we also can note that the diversity is quite big. And the ranks of BRICS countries are not really high. But also there is a positive moment. For instance, if we compare such ranks for 2017 and 2020 years, we can see that some of BRICS countries have made really huge steps in their digital development, especially India, China, and South Africa. For Russian Federation and Brazil, it's not that considerable. The next index I would like to discuss is the Network Readiness Index, which is a composite indicator of a country readiness for B2C commerce, transacting and online shopping, payment and delivery methods. All those indicators are considered inside of this index. On the slide, you can see the top 10 countries in the world. They are presented mainly by European countries and the United States. And again, the indicators for BRICS countries. We can see also that the ranks which are taken by BRICS are not that high, and there is a huge potential for further development. Another indicator which is really significant for characterizing digital trade development is World Digital Competitiveness Ranking. This indicator is really interesting because it comprises such areas like know-how necessary to development of new technologies and the basis for creation of such know-how. Also the context which enables the development of those digital technologies, including regulatory framework and future readiness, which means that index considers the levels of country preparedness to exploit digital transformation and to use it in their social and economic development. You can see the whole range of countries on this slide, and the ranks and the position of BRICS countries in this range. And we clearly see that China is an absolute leader among BRICS in know-how development and its competitiveness in this sphere, while Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa ranks are much lower. So it's also very illustrative because when we compare the regulation level, the size of the economy, and the digital development of BRICS countries, those indexes illustrate in a clear manner the common picture. And when we get such an understanding, we can proceed to considering the level of openness of BRICS countries to digital trade. For that, I suggest to use the Digital Trade Restrictiveness Index and sectors it covers: fiscal restrictions, establishment restrictions, restrictions on data, and trading restrictions. Every such sector has its own chapters. Index ranked every country for every position and every chapter. Really interesting instrument and useful for policy advisors and for researchers. And if we consider the top 20 closed countries in the world in the sphere of digital trade, we can notice that BRICS countries are the absolute top of that list. The giants of BRICS, China, Russia, and India, they take the whole pedestal here as the most restricted economies. And we can see that Brazil takes the 6th position and South Africa the 17th. So during my research, I analyzed every sector separately and considered a lot of interesting experiences of BRICS countries, laws and regulations. But here, unfortunately, I have no time to cover all of them. And if you have further questions on the examples, particular examples, I would literally provide you with answers and share links. But talking about BRICS approaches to e-commerce regulation, it's important to note that across those 4 sections, the highest number of trade defense measures prevail in BRICS countries. All BRICS countries have quite high tariff rates on digital goods. They use bans and restrictive measures in the field of public procurement and digital goods. As for establishment restrictions, the most usable measures are investment screening mechanism and licenses, maximum foreign equity shares, quotas, and foreign service supplies, and competition policy measures. Restrictions on data includes data protection laws, sectoral data localization and retention requirements, and strict and detailed consent requirements for data collection and cross-border flows. Trading restrictions comprise such measures like non-automatic import licensing procedures, local content requirements, and decryption product certification standards. Well, if to consider countries separately, I will cover top 3, China, Russia, and India. For China, China is characterized as the most restrictive digital environment, and it has a quite wide range of measures that restrict digital trade. in all spheres, again, public procurement, FDI, intellectual property rights, competition, and content access. It blocks digital trade in some sectors and leads to high cost of trading in digital goods. As for Russia, Russia has the most restrictive trade regime on cross-border movement of capital, also quite high tariffs and trade defense measures, and the regulation of foreign direct investments is also quite complex. For India, the most regulated sectors are public procurement, and also India widely used standard setting.
Katya, I'm sorry to interrupt you as the time is short. Could you please more closer to the concluding, because it's already...
I have just several comments and I will stop. Well, here it's just more illustrative way to show the usage of restrictive measures by BRICS countries. And again, for every BRICS countries, most active policy domains are indicated on this slide, I already mentioned that. But despite that huge differences and in approaches to regulation, BRICS countries has quite wide digital agenda, which is also explained by current epidemic situation in the world, and it was announced under the presidency of India about integrated digital health information system development. Also, such initiatives are considered under strategy for BRICS economic partnership 2025. And BRICS Business Council annual report considers such issues like BRICS digital literacy plan of action, promotion of e-commerce national platforms, better access to available technologies for small and medium enterprises, and safe and powerful digital infrastructure. As for prospects...
Ekaterina, I'm very sorry, I have to stop you because your time is up more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because we still have a discussion, and maybe if you receive some questions, you can finish what you have left unsaid. Okay. But thank you very much. It was indeed interesting, and I understand sometimes it's difficult to cover everything you want in a very short amount of time. Still, thank you, a great job. So now we are ready to open a discussion. So those of you who have received questions, perhaps you might wish to add something to your replies that you've already sent through the chat, or should you have any questions to each other, please feel free to ask those questions. Well, while you are still thinking, I would like to ask a question to Mutor, Mr. Mutor, who are you with us? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. I'm actually interested in some of your data. On your slides, you showed that currently we can observe transfer of labor from manufacturing to delivery or express delivery sphere,
yes,
which is a part of the digital economy. And my question is, I'm not sure how much express delivery sector pays more than in manufacturing. But when thinking about welfare and other issues that are related, people who transfer from manufacturing to express delivery, are they better off in terms of payment? Do they get a better quality life when they transfer from manufacturing to express delivery or not? And a related question, since China's comparative and competitive advantage depends a lot on its manufacturing base, does government have any retention policies to prevent labor transfer from manufacturing to delivery or any other digital sectors?
Yes, thank you for your questions. And So actually, it is the truth that the worker, if they transfer from the manufacturing industry to some job like a express industry or food delivery careers, they will get the better salaries. The salary usually the salaries of the delivery workers is a little higher, about maybe 20% or 30% higher than the assembly lines workers in the manufacturing industries. But it depends, because the food delivery workers will get their salaries just based on the time and based on the how many orders they get, how many orders they completed. I think the salary is just the one reason why a lot of, the low-skilled workers come back and come out from the manufacturing industries. There's some other reason, like they cannot get the free work models in the manufacturing factories. It means they have to work from, for example, from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock is usually like this. They cannot, because the assembly lines, they cannot they cannot take a good rest, they cannot out from the lines. But if they select some other careers like the food deliveries or life deliveries, they will be free, get a lot of free. They can arrange their life, and this is some other reasons. And the third reason, I think, it is because most of the industry, the manufacturing industries in China, located in the eastern part or the eastern part or the southeast part of China, because the exporting factories. But the labor force, most of the labor force come from some western part or the middle part of China. It means they have to move very fast, maybe 1,000 kilometers from their hometown to the manufacturing the companies located in the eastern part or southeast part of China. But if they select some other works like the food or life delivery, they can just locate in, they can employ it in their hometown. It's another reasons why they selected this kind of job. When you talk about the policies, yes, there is some policies which is published by the Chinese government to stop or to avoid the blind expansion of the capitals, because the platform economies, especially the internet platform economies, they have a very, very good concept to attract some capital investment, and they can, at the expansion stage, they can just ignore the salaries of the worker. They can get enough capitals, to seize the market shares, to get more workers, to get more clients. And but it's not a healthy method. After the expansion, after the companies can get can apply the IPOs, and a lot of capital will get their profit, and it will be just the risk will give to the original or common investors. So it's not the healthy type. Actually, the Chinese government has published some policies to stop some big companies like Alibaba, like I don't know whether you know this company is called Didi. Yeah. Some is Meituan. It's also the big companies which is operating the platform economies. Actually, as the first of the year 2020, these companies want to operate their business in the very end selling some, for example, like the vegetables or fruits directly to the home of people. At first they have a lot of company support. They can, if there's no policies, if there's no policies limited, they will very quickly get the most of the client. But after that, maybe they will raise their price and and they will control the supply chains. It's not a healthy type of digital development.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, indeed, a lot of complicated issues.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other questions or maybe comments?
Ira, I have a question. I
Yeah.
put in the chat. Actually, this is a question to all speakers, as well as actually our conference is also supported by the WTO chair. And in a few days, the ministerial conference will start in Geneva. And one of the main issues at this ministerial conference will be most probably the issue of electronic commerce regulation. And some some reporters and presenters already mentioned the issue of regulation of digital trade. And I'm interested in how they see from BRICS countries' perspective the results, the possible results of the ministerial conference on the e-commerce, because there are different views. For example, from Indian side on one hand, and South Africa, and from, for example, China on the other side, in some cases, right? So how the representatives see the positions of the countries at this ministerial conference. I don't know if we have time, or maybe the representatives could answer the questions in the chat as well.
No, I think we have 5 minutes to discuss it. So if we have some opinions, do please express them.
Yeah, I will be very grateful. It's interesting to listen to this topic.
Any insights on possible outcomes of WTO meeting on regulating e-commerce? Well, judging from what I myself seen from my area of research, and I mostly do research on the Republic of Korea, who is a very active player in e-commerce and also has some initiatives with regard to regulating e-commerce. Well, my observation is that currently there are several conflicting trends. There is like position of the United States, who is extremely open in its regulation of e-commerce and would like to see a free data flow, full opening of information, source codes, and other like technicalities that relate to this issue. Then there is European Union, and actually South Korea is with them, like to have rules-based digital order, where there is a clear set of rules, very much regulated in the EU fashion, and everyone abides by these rules. And then we have players like India, China, Russia as well, who have their own regulations, country, domestic regulations, nationwide regulations that not always comply with international agreements. So these are very different trends that, in my opinion, will be difficult to bring to some common denominator in the upcoming talks. As we've seen from presentations of our participants, for every government considers digital economy as a priority for future development, and everyone would like to gain a competitive advantage there. So perhaps these first talks won't reach a breakthrough, but perhaps will help to bridge certain gaps in understanding what kind of regulation we need. So what do you think?
Actually, I agree with you in many cases. So I totally agree about these different positions. And perhaps on the other hand, there are some countries in BRICS. Actually, we see that in all countries, they see the increase of e-commerce, and in all countries, they see that's governmental policy. But on the other hand, of course, for example, China is more interested in digital trade development due to the fact that China is much more higher, in one or in the top, in the digital trade. And that probably could influence the position of China. But I also agree with you that I do not see that it will be a very, let's say, that a new agreement will probably reached. I see that most probably some plurilateral talks will be, and plurilateral agreements could be achieved, but not the multilateral one. That actually not so good for the for the development in the framework of the international trade. When we see plurilaterals, on one hand, it's the first step, but on the other hand, it needs some fragmentation of regulation. And that means that we will probably have some challenges in case of development. And I totally agree that all, I know if the colleagues and the presenters will agree or not, that of course for all countries today, the digitalization of the economy become one of the priority. And that's why it will be not so easy negotiations. It will be more tough negotiations due to this reason.
Yeah, totally agree with you about the fragmentation of regulation, and perhaps we'll have even different e-commerce blocks, since we have so many tensions in geopolitics currently, and maybe we will see several e-commerce spheres around one dominant country, some sort of like center and periphery model, but several ones with regard to e-commerce. Yeah, but very interesting to observe all these changes.
Yes, I agree with you. So I think we would like to thank all the presenters in the first part, and we need to stop our discussion. We will be very grateful for everyone, to presenters and audience, to give your comments in the chat, and to actually to go to the next session that will be more to give us more subjects, more ideas to think on.
Yes, thank you indeed, everyone. And I would like to remind you that everyone is welcome to submit their papers to the journals that Professor Suturin mentioned at the beginning, the Journal of St. Petersburg State University Economics Series. So please take a look at the website at the requirements, and you are very welcome to submit. And now we are ready to move to our next session, and Ms. Valeria Gorbacheva will be in charge. She is my colleague at the Center for Russia Strategy in Asia at the Institute of Economics, and also she represents the Russian National Committee on BRICS Research. Valeria, would you like to start now, or we have a 5-minute digital break?
I think we have to make a small break and to give our participants a little chance to grab some coffee or tea, and we will come back in 5 minutes.
Okay, then see you all in 5 minutes.
So dear friends, I hope everyone had a chance to grab some coffee or tea and to continue our fascinating conference and discussion. We're switching to the second part, and I hope our presenters are ready to give their speeches. So allow me please to invite to give a speech on the topic, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on South Africa's trade and economy. Dr. Babalwa Siswana, who is Ph.D. in economics, and she is also a program coordinator at National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences from South Africa. So please, the floor is yours, Dr. Siswana. And please switch on your mic.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone in all parts of the world. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to participate in this insightful conference. I will share my presentation slides with you. Please let me know if you can see.
Yes.
I'll be presenting on the impact of COVID-19 on the South Africa's economy. COVID-19 has upended economies of the world. The South African economy has not been left unharmed by COVID-19. South Africa is at war, and the economy, the enemy is coronavirus, which gives a rise to the COVID-19 disease. South Africa faces persistent challenges of inequality, unemployment, and poverty. These challenges have over time been worsened by sustained low levels of investment and economic growth. As a country, we needed stimulation through reskilling, skilling, enhancing access to key assets such as electricity, internet, land, and finance, attracting investment to our country on catalytic projects, sustainable pipeline of investment in order to increase output, diversify the economy where new industries enter the market, and reviving the dying ones, because pre-COVID-19, some of the industries were closing down, couldn't sustain themselves. Create employment, ensure food security, reduce inequality, and eradicate poverty. The COVID-19 entered our country where we had a stoppage and slowing of economic activities. Lessons learned during this period are the key for recovery. Therefore, we need to take it as a natural experiment. If you look at this table, you'll see that in 2020, South Africa, we implemented a lockdown to prevent the sickness from spreading as rapid as possible. The lockdown measures that were imposed, that were implemented, imposed a severe negative shock on the South African economy with immediate loss of economic activity, followed by the medium-term and the long-term economic effects. The red column is when stage 5, level 5 was implemented in our country. The drastic measures were required during that time. There was no movement at all. And then we moved from stage 5 to stage 4. Some of the activities were allowed, but they were subject to extreme requirements. And then from stage 4, which is level 4 of the lockdown, we moved to stage 3, the easing on some restrictions on work and social activities. If you look at this table, you see that during stage 3 and 4 and stage 5, our economy was at decline. And then when we moved to stage 3, which is our neutral level, there were further easing of restrictions, but maintenance of social distancing. And then in 2001, which is this year, when we are at stage 1, which is level 1, most normal activities resume with caution and health guidelines followed all the times. So during this at level 1, we saw that there was COVID-19 vaccination and the road to recovery. But currently, even though we are in stage 1, most of us are asking ourselves that, are we going to experience the 4th wave of COVID-19? Despite the obstacles South Africa faced, the economy grew for the 4th quarter in a row in the 2nd quarter of 2021 by 1.2%. This followed a revised 1% rise in the GDP growth in the 1st quarter, notwithstanding the gains over the last 4 quarters. The economy is 1.4% smaller than it was before COVID-19. Therefore, as a country, we are not yet out of the woods. So we need to take precautions. As I have mentioned in the previous slide, that we experienced 1.2% of growth. These 2 graphs are taken from the Statistics South Africa, where we saw in the 2nd quarter that 6 of the 10 industries recorded an increase from the transport and communication to the electricity, gas, and water, where the 3 of them were leading, which is the transport, communication, agriculture, personal services. We also see the increase in trade by 2.2%. And then when we look at the 2nd graph, we see that the exports have increased by 4%. Even though we are still battling with what the COVID has caused in our country, but slowly we are getting there. There are drastic interventions now that need to be taken into consideration for our economy to recover. And the components that or the ingredients that we need for the strategic intervention as South Africa, we need transformation, job saving and creation, diversification, localization, reindustrialization, empowering small businesses and cooperatives, empowering informal sectors, because these are the sectors and businesses that will create jobs in our country. We need to configure, recover, and grow. So the Kong term is the wheel or bar with a series of projections on its edge, which transfers motion by engaging with projections on another wheel or bar. Therefore, above all, we need to embrace the new economy because we are here now. In the words of our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, he said, we must do whatever it takes to get the cogwheel in motion. So we really need to do whatever it takes to get our economy at a better place. As I have mentioned in the previous slide, that we need to save the existing jobs and create the new ones. And these industries are the ones that can create those jobs in the informal and the formal sectors through skilling, upskilling, and reskilling our citizens. Also, we need the business development in township economies. Then they need to be included in order for our economy to increase, and the development, infrastructure development, the internet, water, electricity, and other related developments. For our economy, or for us as South Africa to keep that wheel going, we need to increase the total supply and demand of goods and services in South African economy and increase employment levels through labor market absorption of critical occupations and demographic segments through reskilling and upskilling, and also drive reindustrialization through provincial and national catalytic projects, rural and non-farm initiatives based on unique strengths and potential of the country. Build equitable and inclusive economy, because we need to include everyone in order for our economy to be at the better place. Through the SME, the township economy is not to be forgotten, informal sector and social economy. Lastly, also mobilize public investment and create a sovereign wealthful fund to boost economic fiscals, public fiscals, I mean. The lockdown measures that South Africa has put into place to contain the virus have profound economic implications. So it is important to focus on economic recovery as a country, which is infrastructure development, that is to unlock bottlenecks, to jumpstart and accelerate the implementation of economic catalytic projects, and prioritize construction of strategic roads in key nodes of the country, and industrialization, equitable and inclusive transformation, and to spend the money where it counts. We need to embrace the new economy as South Africans so that we can be able to move forward, configure, recover, and grow our economy. That's what we need to do after what the COVID-19 have done in our country. We are aware that we are not the only country that has experienced the negative impact, but we need to embrace the new economy. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sisvana. You've raised a lot of important topics. Thank you very much for joining us. I would like to mention that the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences, which Dr. Sisvana represents today, is one of the leading research universities in South Africa and one of our permanent partners for BRICS Research. And now please kindly allow me to invite our Brazil colleagues, who represents Institute of Applied Economic Research, one of the leading think tanks in Brazil, who are maybe the most active on BRICS research in Brazil, and they are also a part of the BRICS Think Tank Council, our permanent partners. I would like to ask Ms. Scarlett Quinn Almeida Bispo and Ms. Michelle Marcia Viana Martins, who are research assistants at the Directorate of Studies and Economic Relations and International Policies, IPEA, to present on the topic digital economy in the context of the trade facilitation agreement and the modernization of customs administration in the BRICS countries. Please, I can remind you on 10 minutes limit, and please, the floor is yours, Ms. Scarlett Quinn and Ms. Michelle Martins.
Okay, can you see my presentation? Yes. So, good afternoon to everyone. I am Michelle Martins, and me and my colleague Scarlett Quinn, we presentation the paper Trade Facilitation and Digital Technologies Analysis for BRICS. So, okay, so the COVID-19 pandemic carried changes in production and commercial process to maintain social distances. In this context, the customs process becomes slower, and the World Trade Organization estimates that logistic-related disruptions account for up to a third of the decline in world trade, from 12% to 32%. So, therefore, the adoption of trade facilitation instrument as a way to mitigate distortive effects on trade flows and optimize the export performance of countries. And I mean, in order to speed up process and avoid disruption to trade, this is especially important to global value chains. And trade facilitation agreements, which entered into force in 2017, contains provisions to expedite the movement and clearance of goods, include goods in transit. Through TF measures, the agreement recognized that removing impediment to the movement of goods across border is critical to promoting and sustaining supply management. Okay, so the purpose of this paper is investigate the adoption of these measures by BRICS members countries, and we evaluate the trade facilitation agreement in some contexts here, namely reduction bureaucracy time, commercial costs, digital technology, mainly blockchain, SPS and TBT agreements, COVID-19 certificates, and customs efficiency. So the first indicators we analyze is that of the World Trade Organization. On this slide, you can see the schedule for implementing trade facilitation measures according to the country's level of development and technical and financial capacity for implementation. So we can see here in pink bar, Russia is the only BRICS classified as a developed country. So our measures are included in category A. There is, they must be implemented soon after the agreement enters into force, you know. So Brazil and China had only 5% of the measures in category B, but currently these measures have already been resolved and met the World Trade Organization schedule. Some measures still need to be implemented by India and South Africa. So is this hash area and represent by area of project B, okay? So here we have the second indicator calculated by OECD, which includes 12 priority areas that are involved in the circle, okay, here in the circle. The blue line shows the values of the indicators for 2019 year and pink line for the 2017 year. We can see the blue line is often superior to the pink line and closer to the number of indicator better. So you can see here to Brazil, Russia, India, China, and the last one, South Africa. So, I mean, it is observed that for the BRICS country, there have been improvement in almost every aspect, okay? In general, what needs to be improved is describable here in the rectangles. So first, we have that reforms in the area of formalities, governance, and impartiality, access to information bring benefits to all countries. And second, we can see regulatory changes that reduce fees and charges bring benefits, especially for Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa. And the last one shows that reforms to appeals procedures could be especially interesting for Russia Federation. Okay. So the next indicator is calculated by World Bank and shows the logistic performance of countries in some areas. So we have track and tracing, international shipments, timelines, infrastructure, logistic quality and competence, and the last one is customs. So data are for 2018, the most recent year for which information is available. And the closer to 5, the better the country logistic performance. So we have China and South Africa had the highest scores with emphasis on the indicator timelines. And in the other hand, we have Russia that had the lowest scores among the BRICS, mainly for indicator customs, which is the indicator with the least performance among the BRICS countries. I mean, the customs is especially related to trade facilitation, as it involves broader procedures. And the one proposed to improve these indicators is the automation of customs and the adoption of digital technology, which was necessary during COVID-19. Okay, Scarlett?
Hi, good afternoon. I try to be as brief as possible, okay? Another proposal to assess trade facilitation by comparing countries is the trading across border indicators. This is provided by World Banks doing business. So in general, it's calculated the average time and costs for clearing goods in official border procedures. This calculation is associated with 3 sets of procedures: documentary compliance, border compliance, and domestic compliance. So this figure shows the score of BRICS countries over time. Overall, there have been significant increases for most countries. Which is indications that countries rather reduced the time and cost to export and import. Actually, in the trade across border ranking, as we can see on the right, China is the best position among the BRICS countries in 56th position. And next, please. Since implementation of trade facilitation agreements in 2017, the improvement of the BRICS nation in the trade across border indication is due to the implementation of digital technologies in cross-border agents. This chart shows reform to improve international trade. I give an example: adoption of electronic systems, electronic certificates, single window, and more other things. Next, please. And trade facilitation measures is also related to other WTO agreements, such as sanitary and the phytosanitary agreements, and the technical barriers to trade agreements. Note in the figure that both, SPS, which carry trade facilitation TBT with the objective of reducing barriers and enable trade, show a peak in notifications in 2020, and as a result of COVID-19, indicating the pandemic accelerated the implementation of trade facilitation in the BRICS countries through the SPS and TBT measures, okay? I'd like to move on. Next, please. Given the importance of adopting disruptive technology to promote trade facilitation, particularly as a result of COVID-19, I will talk briefly about the blockchain. Blockchain is a type of distributed ledger technologies, DLTs. Blockchain is applicable to commercial and customer environment, okay, where the participants of the transaction need to exchange information. And this technology can promote increases in supply chain efficiency, both by reducing intermediaries' manual tasks and paper use, and by improving certainty and predictability based on the reliable data available in real time to stakeholders. This figure provides a simple example of how blockchain works in the supply chain, but there is no time. So in the short, all stakeholders end-to-end access to container products through the supply chain. With the smart contracts, transactions are faster and arrive on time. Next, please. So the World Customs Organization, the World Trade Organization, did a joint paper based on interviews with the members about the use of disruptive technologies. They point out that blockchain can bring benefits such as, on the left, transparency, immutability, and accessibility of information, data quality. On the other hand, the main challenge for its effective implementation are lack of standardization of data usage by government agents and the economic operations, and the scarcity of efficient government systems and the other things. Next, please. Finally, in general, the indicators WTO, OECD, LPI, and doing business demonstrate the BRICS countries have carried out reforms within the scope of trade facilitation. The SPS and TBT notifications show COVID-19 has encouraged the adoption of trade facilitation measures. Some countries such as advancing customs process in the direction of digital technologies such as blockchain. And the only country signaled the adoption of blockchain technology was China. And this is the code of notification. Michelle, you're mute.
So please finish in 10 seconds. Michelle, you are on mute.
Okay, sorry. So, okay. So, re-inform you that the opinions expressed in the publication are the exclusive responsibility of the authors. So it's me and my colleague, Scarlett, and all information from this presentation will be available in a technical note published by IPEA. So we thank you for your attention. And is this.
Thank you very much. You give us a great outlook on trade relations among BRICS countries. And to save time, I would like to invite our next speaker, who represents my alumni university, my alma mater university, Ms. Antonina Terleva, who is PhD student at the Department of World Economy of the St. Petersburg State University, will present on the topic, the current state of the municipal solid waste management industry in the BRICS countries. So please, Antonina, 10 minutes starts for you now. Antonina, you are on mute. So please switch on your mic and you can start to present because we can see your presentation well.
Now this is unmute. Good day, dear colleagues. Today I would like to speak about a topic that I myself find quite important. I would like to give some insight to the current state of the municipal solid waste management industry in the BRICS countries. And first of all, I would like to outline the structure of my presentation. I will speak about MSW generation statistics problems. After that, I move on to socioeconomic indicators which affect MSW generation and assess these indicators for BRICS region. After that, I will speak about current state of MSW management industry in BRICS region and speak about COVID-19 impact because it's something that is impossible to ignore nowadays. If we would like to have some idea of current state of, if we would like to form an idea of the current state of the MSW management industry in any country, we would need two components. The first one is reliable monitoring system, and the second one is comparable international counting methodology. As for the first one, it is being developed in most BRICS countries. As for Russia, there is no such system now. As for the second point, in 2017, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe presented a report which described MSW generation statistics problems. And the problems are as follows. Statistics compiled by national governments is not comparable due to different methodology. For example, in Russian Federation, our government estimates amount of MSW generated in volume, whereas in most countries it is estimated in weight. Also, official statistics does not include illegal landfilling sites and informal waste picking statistics. And also there is no clear definition of waste and second raw materials, which makes it impossible to divide these two things. In order to better understand the trends of MSW generation, we need to point out some indicators, some socioeconomic indicators which affect MSW generation most. Scientists point out 3 such indicators. These are population, urbanization, and income level. So now I will estimate these indicators for BRICS region. Population of BRICS represents over 40% of global population and continues to grow, especially well, I would say that in India and China, population is growing rapidly, as you can see it here. As for urbanization, it also has some upward trend for almost all countries in BRICS region, except for Russia. There is a small growth. And as for income level, there is also average upward trend, especially for China. As for all countries, we can see here a downward trend during pandemic, of course. So taking all these indicators into consideration, we can assume that MSW generation would grow in almost all BRICS countries, and especially in China. So we can see here, I found some data on Chinese MSW generation, and we indeed can see rapid growth. I don't present here information on India and South Africa because it was not available on annual basis. And also I don't present Russian statistics because it's measured in in volume. As for Brazil, MSW generation curve is almost the same as curve of income level. You can see it here. It's almost the same. Moving on to the other characteristics of MSW management industry in BRICS region, I would like to point out high organic waste content. You can see it is more than 50% for India, China, and South Africa. For comparison, in European Union, average organic waste content is 34%. Also, BRICS countries can be characterized by high landfilling rate. It is almost 90% for Russia, India, and South Africa, which means that in these countries there is almost no recycling. These two facts, high landfilling rate and high organic content, lead to quite bad consequences for environment, because high organic content leads to biogas formation on landfilling sites, and this in turn leads to greenhouse effect. Also, high landfilling rate it poses, well, countries have to have some land which where would these landfills be? And for example, in China, as far as I know, there is all the landfilling sites are almost 90% full. Also, on the landfills, wastewater is formed, which afterwards enters groundwater and diminishes environment. And also, we can't ignore pests and other problems. As for India and South Africa, we can see that almost 1/3 of population does not have access to municipal solid waste picking services because of low collection rates. And also there are a lot of unauthorized landfills in Russia and Brazil. As for COVID-19 impact, it is quite difficult to estimate right now because there is no statistics for 2020, but we can estimate it based on the global effect of COVID-19 on this industry. First of all, there was sharp increase of medical MSW, which needs to be handled in special way. Also, there was increase in food and plastic waste. This is because of online shopping and because people order food to their homes. And also, MSW needs to be stored before disposal. This is a WHO recommendation as well, and this brings additional costs. To sum up, I would like to say that MSW generation statistics is all in all questionable. BRICS countries' socioeconomic indicators imply sharp growth of MSW generation, especially in China and India. Current state of MSW management industry is in the initial stage of development, and there are a lot of challenges to overcome. And COVID-19 pandemic puts even more pressure on MSW management industry. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. That was an excellent timing, and thank you very much for giving us such a valuable data. I'm ready to present our next speaker, who is Ms. Zhang Huiming, a Ph.D. student from the Faculty of Global Studies at the Lomonosov Moscow State University. Ms. Zhang Huiming, please, the floor is yours. And please unmute you. Ms. Zhang, we can't see you, but we can't hear you. Please, maybe try again to switch on your PPT presentation and switch on your microphone. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see your presentation. Please start.
I'm so sorry because of sudden technical problems and power fail in my ears. So if my voice is not clear, please don't hesitate to tell me. And thank you for the opportunity. And today my topic is the challenge of BRICS digital economic governance and the impact of the epidemic from the China's response and outlook. We know that the outbreak of the COVID-19 has brought about a traumatic change in the forest of economic globalization and has impacted all levels of global economic governments. In response to the epidemic, the BRICS implement strict blockade policy. The industry chain was suddenly interrupted trade and investment demand plummeted, and the economic development suffered a major blow. So in these presentations, I will discuss the challenge of the digital economic that BRICS face and the problem China faces in the countermeasure and how China participates in BRICS to develop together in the digital economies. According to the comparative data analysis of World Bank data in 2020, you can see although China, as mentioned in the previous excellent speech we have today, so I wanted to talk a lot in these basic informations. And we can know that the BRICS all have been negatively affected by COVID-19. And although China is the only one country in BRICS and has the positive GDP growth among the BRICS, but still all the countries in BRICS they have negative effect. Then another about the challenge in BRICS we have is there is a significant difference in the level of the digital infrastructure in the BRICS countries. And from this figure, it can be seen that the digital infrastructure in India and South Africa is relatively backward. And there are still a large number of remote rural areas that have not been able to access the internet. Problems such as network delay and high traffic has dragged down in this development of the digital economy industry. And the third one is there has no internal consensus on the sharing and the development of data resource. We know that data resources are very important production factors in the context of the digital technology revolutions, and reasonable use and the development will greatly empower the industry upgrading and optimize the social government. However, the security threats facing data resources are also very large and may even endanger national strategic security, and making data resource sharing is such a difficult. And next one is about the Western countries section on China and Russia. In recent years, China influence continues to increase, and the power gap between China and the United States has narrowed. The United States government has intensified its strategic competition with China to maintain United States hegemony, and has increased the different nations and disintegration of BRICS. At the same time, as the power gap between the China and the other BRICS has widened, individual countries' perception of the China strategy has also increased. And the Western countries not only go to China, but also in Russia, they impose the economic sanctions, but also interest the external pressure on India to try to promote India resistance to BRICS. The second part is our challenge facing China and the China response policies. From this, we can say that the challenge facing China is from first I already mentioned the economic sanction in Western countries. It's that we can take example that China with United States, the trade war, and the lack of experience in participating in the global government, and China have the economic transformation problems here. And as a response that China participated in, participated in international affairs under the 5 principles of the peaceful consensus, and is a digital economies, and the strengthens the key core technology research, speed up the construction of the new infrastructure, promote the integrated development of digital economic and the real economic, include the digital economic governance system, improve the laws, regulation, and the policy system, and improve system and the machines. The Chinese economies is facing 3 major strategic opportunities, and like the technology change, green transformation, and upgrading of the demand structure. At the same time, it's also encouraged the 3 major challenges of intensified competition among major power, transformation of the comparative advantage, and the change in demographic structure. And that is how China to practice in the BRICS digital economic construction. In today's world, a new round of industrial revolution centered on intelligence, networking, and digitization has promoted change in the global production chain and value chains. This is an opportunity and a challenge. The BRICS should seize the opportunity brought about by the new industrial revolution to the greatest intent. Enhance their innovations, capitalists accelerated the flow of the innovative elements such as knowledge, technology, and talent, and give play to the respective comparative advantage of the 5 countries, and deepen the BRICS cooperation in the field of the digitalization, industrialization, and investment, accelerated the digitalization process and promote a common development. China has made full use of the digital technology in the fight against the COVID-19 to take the lead in recovering the economies. Based on the charters of the COVID-19, the Chinese government has widely used the digital epidemic prevent technology represented by digital documents, close contact tracking, disease transmission simulation, and telemedicine. With proper control of the epidemic, there are no problems with domestic industrial production, and the economic impact is also relativity limit. It will become the only country with positive GDP growth in BRICS in 2020. This makes China an opportunity to potential target for economics and trade competition during this period. And China can actively share the experience of using digital technology to COVID-19 and how to recover the economies. And from a participant point of view, China active development of economies and the trade activity with other member states has had a positive impact on economies recall. Then is China can use the practice experience accumulated in the field of the digital economic. China's advantage concept and practice in 5G construction, smart cities, government, and so on. They can establish relevant exchange and corporate mechanism and hold training course on the digital economic. It can focus on new digital infrastructure, industrial and digital transformation, and digital government, and new career opportunity in urban infrastructure, construction, and other fields. Next one is in view of the instability in the economic field and the increasing geopolitical tensions. New international payment system should be established and improved as soon as possible. As we already mentioned in a period of years, that there have a BRICS pay system, and this system will initially integrate and the payment system of various countries based on two aspects: a unified virtual payment and remittation platform. Its implementation plays an important role in promoting cross-border tourism and consumptions in the BRICS countries, as well as expanding the development of cross-border e-commerce. And then is about the Chinese OBOR one-by-one road. As early as 2017, the Xi Jinping put forward the initiative of the joint building the 2001st century's digital Silk Road. And the One Belt, One Road framework explored the opportunity of the joint using the digital economic, share information, infrastructure, construction experience, activities developing digital economic cooperation, and create a mutually benefit and win-win community of interest and the community of destiny. So activities are promoting the digital technology.
May I kindly ask you to finish in 1 minute, okay?
Yes, okay, we can finish this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And allow me please kindly to invite our next speakers who represent St. Petersburg State University, two bachelor students, and Ms. Varvara Kungurova and Ms. Vladislava Logo will present on the topic e-commerce platforms in China, the role in international business during the pandemic. So please, the floor is yours. Your 10 minutes starts now. Коллеги, презентацию видим, но не слышим. Okay, there is a small technical problem as usual. Nothing to do with that, so we'll give 10 seconds for Ms. Varvara to check her headphones. Just wanted to mention that China is very popular topic for today's conference. As you can see, a lot of papers are devoted to China and Chinese economy and trade. And this presentation is also devoted to China. And we hope that in future, our students and our participants can elaborate and collaborate on those issues to write some maybe common papers and research regarding this topic. So have you managed to switch on your mic, Varvara? No, we can't hear you. Maybe your co-author can present.
Yes, of course. Just a second. I need to understand. Can Varvara show the presentation? No. Varvara, can you? Oh.
Yes, she can.
I need some time. Just 1 minute. Sorry.
While we're waiting, I would like to mention that after this conference, we will send you the link to the journal, which Dr. Kowal presented to you in the beginning, and you will be free to send your articles to this journal because it has a Web of Science citation link. And of course, we also will share with you the link to this conference. We'll download it on YouTube and it will be available always for you. And another thing I would like to share with you, there will be a conference from our Indian colleagues, which is also devoted to BRICS economic relations. Actually, it is going to be held very soon, namely on November 26, 27. From our colleagues from Research and Informational System for Developing Countries, RIS, and this will be the BRICS Virtual Economic Conclave. I strongly recommend you to join it because it is organized in collaboration with Ministry of Finance and Reserve Bank of India. So if you are interested in, I will share you the link to register and to listen those conference. And
Valeria, I have a suggestion. While our current presenters have some technical issue, so I suggest to move on, and when they resolve, they can present later.
Of course. Thank you, Rina. So I would like to present our next speaker, who is also from China, Ms. Su Shushang. I hope you are ready to save the situation. She's master student from Department of World Economy of the St. Petersburg State University, and she will present on the topic, the impact of COVID-19 on international travel services, an example of China. Mr. Su?
So I'm here.
Yeah, Mr. Please.
Okay. I'm sharing my.
Okay.
How to share this? Sorry. Yes.
Okay, we can see your presentation.
Okay.
And you may start now.
Okay. My topic is about this, as you have introduced this. So maybe I give some basic background about this. So like things, clothing of China's border, China closed its border to most international level trade last year, and China also imposed a strict lockdown, mass testing, large-scale contacting tracing, quarantines, and entry restrictions are part of its zero-tolerance COVID-19 strategy. And air travel remains the main way of entering the country, but international flights to the country are limited. In March last year, China restricted both foreign and Chinese carriers to just one weekly international passenger flight per airline. And travel by land and sea has also been restricted since the pandemic started. So from this diagram, we could see that China has stopped granting visas to international students, except to those from South Korea, because they have signed an agreement last year. And we could also see the tourism was completely restricted from the outside world of the China. And as for the work travel to China, it's allowed to people who have special visas, such as government officials and diplomats traveling for personal reasons, and they can enter the country. And those from the same group traveling for official purpose on diplomatic and service visas are also allowed in. But however, it's still possible to enter the country for certain reasons. Mainland Chinese citizens can return home from overseas as long as they test negative for COVID-19 and obtain the health code required to verify this. Meanwhile, foreigners holding valid work, personal, and family renewance residence permits are allowed to enter. And foreigners can also apply for visas for like the emergency reasons, such as visiting critically ill relatives or attending the funeral of an immediate family member. But however, some visas require the travelers to have been vaccinated with a Chinese vaccine. But the relative policies actually have been changing. So the traveler are advised to check the Chinese embassy website in their country for the latest information. From this graph, we could easily see that China's import of travel services has been decreasing dramatically since the start of the pandemic. Although this is a slight resilience in the second half of 2020, but comparing to the situation before the pandemic, the slight increase is not enough. And we could look at the situation before the pandemic. In 2019, the United States accounted for the largest share of tourism exports, namely 30.3% of a total $1.55 trillion. And follow this is Spain, Thailand, and France. And China did not export as much as these countries. But if we take a look at the import of travel services, China shares the largest part of the total import revenue, which accounts for 21% of $1.41 trillion. And if we look at the whole services trade of China, we could notice that the gap between its imports and exports is shrinking. So maybe this graph is more obvious. So we could see that because of the decline of China's imports of travel services, the deficit of China's trading services is decreasing. And actually, this could be a good news to China. The general agreement on trading services distinguished between 4 modes of supplying services: cross-border trade, consumption abroad, commercial presence, and the presence of natural person. And for travel services, it can be included in the second mode, consumption abroad, which means the restriction on movement of people is the root cause of the shrink of China's deficit in service trade. Except the restriction, the current efforts made by every government are like encouraging its citizens to get vaccinated. And in the recent G20 conference, countries also want to reach mutual recognition of COVID-19 vaccination certificates, and the self-monitor for individuals are also very important. Maybe I could make some example. For example, like India, they said that if a traveler is fully vaccinated and coming from a country which India has raised mutual agreements for this acceptance of WHO-approved COVID-19 vaccines, they shall be allowed to leave the airport and need not undergo home quarantine. And maybe they need a further self-monitor for like 14 days. So once like they think about like the future things, because once we relieve the border restrictions, maybe we have to rethink that how travel and tourism industry can develop. So e-commerce actually can offer opportunities for tourism organizations to expand their customer base, build communication with customers and related partners in a more cost-effective and direct way. For customers, e-commerce allows them to access more information on their tourist destinations, and services communicate with tourism organizations and make booking at a relatively low cost. People might be used to depend on travel agent to arrange all travel schedules, but today everyone can be their own travel agent to make their own tourism plans due to the advanced usage of the internet and the expansion of e-commerce industry. Apart from that, the e-commerce in tourism increase the ability of local tourism company to expand their reach into global markets. With the expansion of technology, the internet has increased accessibility and convenience as it removes country boundaries. E-commerce also helps to reduce search costs, administration costs, distribute costs, and labor costs. So the cost is very important thing, especially for the companies. So that's all. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much. Again, a very excellent timing, and we save some time for our last but not least speaker. So please, Varvara and
Yes.
Vladislava, are you ready to present?
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
And can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Oi.
Excellent.
Oi. I'm sorry.
So please, your 10 minutes start now.
Just a second. I need to open it wider, but I don't know how to do it.
Maybe it's better to leave it like this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can you see it when I switch it on? Oh,
that's okay.
Okay.
Well, our theme is e-commerce platform in China, the role in international business during the pandemic. And to start with, China was the first country to face the COVID-19 pandemic on a large scale. The pandemic had a significant negative impact on many sectors of the economy, but certain sectors even benefited from the situation. And some sectors such as e-commerce. As a result, e-commerce in China got a major boost and became a driving force for the country's
economic development, and that is why the experience of e-commerce development in China seems to be very important, and Chinese e-commerce enterprises are a notable player in the global market. So in our study, we trying to identify the impact of COVID-19 on Chinese e-commerce solution in response to challenges posed by pandemic shock, and shares of the distribution of the e-commerce market by company in the post-COVID period. Can we switch to the next slide? So due to pandemic, many businesses have been forced to move their operations online. And it's important to understand how it affected all consumers' behavior. And on the first figure, we can see the percentage of respondents who changed their online shopping behavior during the pandemic in China. And we can see more than a half of respondents began to make more online purchases, which is understandable. In the midst of a pandemic, it's safer to stay home and shop remotely. About 20% of respondents didn't change their online shopping behavior, and 18 did pure online transactions. And from our point of view, this has more to do with people's desire to save money during a pandemic crisis than with a lack of trust in e-commerce. And the period of peak coronavirus infection is highly associated with the greatest level of fear among citizens who haven't yet adjusted to the circumstances that have arisen. And that's why the most popular items were basic necessities and all sorts of leisure supplies. And of course, this is one of the factors explaining that intensive growth of Chinese e-commerce. So it's impossible to conclude now how long-term its effect will be. And it's likely that once the pandemic subsides, the population tired of quarantine measures and long-term isolation will rush to conventional stores and abandon online shopping for a while.
The pandemic brought with a number of problems. Let's focus on them. We identified two main problems that seem to us like the most important. The first one is online scams. There have been reports of fraudulent and deceptive practices, with some online sellers offering fake or unsafe hand sanitizers, surgical face masks, and price-gouging practices by certain manufacturers, and retail seeking to cash in and profit from the surge in demand. Many companies have realized the importance of building trust. Surveys have shown that people prefer to buy from companies that publicity protect customers and employees from COVID-19 risks. Personalization and cybersecurity blockchain solution is like a solution to the first problem. Some companies have changed consumer policies in response to COVID-19, for example, by offering free shipping, extending periods for return. And important methods of attracting customers to e-commerce and retaining them as loyal customers is to ensure high standards of the account securities. One innovative approach to solving this problem uses artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to customize each consumer's e-commerce experience by identifying user based on common characteristics. Specifically, the approach allows responsible e-commerce service providers to see the status of the logins and quickly identify the number of logs and calls, as well as failed login. Blockchain-based solution can be used to increase transparency in trade, which has become especially relevant in the uncertainty caused by the pandemic. The lack of reliable supply information becomes an obstacle when logistic flows and supply chains drastically restricted. Blockchain platforms can act as reliable aggregators of such information, effectively reducing transaction costs in global trade. So blockchain is one of the new information infrastructure along with the 5G and artificial intelligence. The West is trailing heavily behind China in the race of leadership in the blockchain industry. Without rivals, the latter has an opportunity to become like an integral part of the world decentralized infrastructure for decades to come. The NRC already controls the country online payments and market since 2018. Alipay and WeChat have kept customers' funds in interest-free accounts in the People's Bank, and authorities have monitored the giant cash flows. The next problem is disruption in supply chain. Production facilities for the products are located in different countries, so more product parts are made in China. Because of the pandemic, the delivery of product parts is intermittent, which slows down the production of goods. While it is positive that factories in China continue return to production mode and shipments, of course, are getting better, but there are still problems affecting the movement of goods. The solution of the problem, like the China, is a global factory with most of the world's manufacturing concentrated there. Because of this, the product parts don't have to go through customs, which makes the transportation and assembly of goods much faster. So therefore, e-commerce in China has a competitive advantage and is coping with the difficulties caused by pandemic faster than the rest of the world.
So as we already mentioned, we would like to notice the shares of distribution of the e-commerce market by company in the post-COVID period. And the second figure presents the e-commerce market share of leading e-commerce companies worldwide. And during the 2020, Amazon accounted for 13% of global e-commerce gross merchandise volume, while the Chinese companies ranked first with 25%. On the next slide, we can see the third figure, and as of April 2021, Amazon was by far the most popular online marketplace worldwide, and the second most visited shopping site was eBay. And we can see a huge difference between the market share and the number of monthly visits. We would also like to highlight that in post-COVID China, users start spending more time in a platform called Pinduoduo. This is experiencing the most consistent growth in the monthly app use time. We can see it on the next slide. And it's important to underline this fact because it's important in the context of Chinese e-commerce development. Some experts explain it by pointing that this site offers a lower price to consumers if they band it together to buy a product. And another explanation is its ability to offer unbeatable prices without compromising on quality. So Alibaba remains the world's largest e-commerce place by sales, but it has had a disappointment in 2020, and its share of Chinese e-commerce market has fallen below 50% for the first time. And as a result, Pinduoduo and JD.com are growing much faster. And it's also worth noting that Chinese e-commerce platforms are becoming more attractive not only to the Chinese citizens, but also to foreign buyers and foreign sellers. A large number of foreigners not only act as consumers of Chinese e-commerce products, but also enter the Chinese market as sellers themselves. And one of the reasons for this is the possibility of a live stream, which is very important in today's market and the high degree of interest in Chinese consumers in online shopping. That's all. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I even lost the time, and I suddenly realized that I'm the one who drastically changed the online purchasing behavior during the COVID-19 pandemic. I really started to spend much more money for online shopping. So this was the last presentation for today. We've saved some time for a small discussion, and now I cordially invite all the speakers to switch on your cams and to prepare for a small discussion and for final remarks. And I prepared one question for our Chinese presenters. So any of you may answer the question, and please think over it. Next year, China is going to chair BRICS. And you know, of course, Chinese government has already started to prepare the main documents and for the BRICS chairship, which will start on the January 1st. So how do you think, what might be the priorities of China's chairship in BRICS for next year, especially in the sphere of economic and finance? So maybe Dr. Mutu or our colleagues from Lomonosov Moscow State University, Ms. Zhang Huiming, or Mr. Han Su can answer those questions. Just your predictions on what topics might be prioritized by China, and also our Russian colleagues and our foreign colleagues may share their predictions on what topics we are going to discuss next year. So please, colleagues, you are free to share your ideas now. Mr. Muto, are you here? Okay. Maybe
yes,
yes,
I'm here because just I'm just make a calling for course of work. So I'm so sorry that I didn't catch your questions.
Just a short question. How do you think what priorities will be for the next Chinese chairship in BRICS in 2022?
So, may I ask you to repeat the questions? So, so it means you mean the task for next years for China, or?
Yes. What issues China is going to set as the priorities for Chinese BRICS chairship in 2022?
Sorry,
or maybe,
so maybe could I maybe say
sure.
some of my opinions?
Okay, please.
So as our presenters mentioned today, that China has 45 years plan. So in this plan, it mentioned that China will continue to develop the digital economy. And actually, I have some interesting things to think about, because as we all know, China is good at trading merchandise goods, and nowadays China wants to develop its trading services. So maybe this kind of trading services trade could be developed based on the good trade in goods. So like how, like maybe they can provide the relative service which is collected to the goods. For example, so maybe when we are talking about the construction, so maybe they will have some professionals to provide more cut agent buildings, or like the more more excellent the services. I don't know, I lost my words.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. That was a nice idea, and I completely agree with you. I think that digitalization of economy and commerce might be one of the priorities for China for the next year, as well as the developing of cooperation in innovations, because this year China launched the Center for Innovation Cooperation for BRICS countries in Xiamen, and I think that next year they will continue to realize this project and to develop cooperation somehow. And of course, I hope that China will be those country who will finally launch the BRICS Western Center. We're talking about it for like last 5 years since the last South Africa's chairship. The idea of launching this BRICS Western Center arose long before the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think that would be a great step for BRICS to develop this initiative and finally to launch this center next year. And one more thing that we can collaborate on, or maybe even prepare some future research next year, is of course the work of the New Development Bank. As you know, this year China finished the building, the headquarter building of NDB in Shanghai, and we are waiting that it will start its full operationalization. We of course remember that this year NDB was it invited. It was enlarged and it invited new participants from non-BRICS countries, new participants, new countries to become the participants of the New Development Bank and to make donations to the bank. And I hope that next year we can discuss this topic more closely, because we will see the first results of this decision. And I see that we have just 1 minute ahead, and due to the time table of our conference, I would like to finish our session here. And thank you very much for all presenters. I will give the floor to our distinguished moderators, Dr. Irina Korgun and Dr. Alexandra Koval, for some closing remarks. So colleagues, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Valeria, and thank you everyone for really great dynamics of this session and the previous session. We thank all participants for sharing their ideas and views. It's very important to have a venue for younger scholars to articulate their ideas, because I think not always they can go out and share and gain experience. That is why we decided to create this venue today. And I think it largely has succeeded in its goal, in achieving this goal, to give the floor to young researchers. We've seen a wide coverage of issues, starting from impact of COVID-19 pandemics on macroeconomy. We've seen some specific talks on effects on labor in China in particular. We've seen ideas about digital trade in each country of the BRICS, and certain perspectives on how digital trade can develop among the BRICS countries. So this clearly shows us directions in which discussion will flourish in the coming years. And of course, it's quite logical, because the world has changed a lot during the COVID-19 pandemic, and digital has become an integral part of our everyday lives. And it's important that we discuss these issues and co-create our future together. Thank you again, and we hope to see your papers submitted for publication at the Journal of St. Petersburg State University Economics Series. We will mail you some more detailed information, so don't hesitate to ask questions and submit your papers. Thank you all very much, and it's my pleasure to give a floor for final remarks to my colleague, Dr. Alexander. Suddenly I forgot her family name, but it's not important. Yes, Koval, yes. Thank you, Sasha. Yeah, floor is yours.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Valeria. It was very great, actually, to hear the results, such as actually tremendous results from young researchers. Yeah, what I was surprised a lot is to listen to the presentations and to be proud that our science, international science and Russian science in particular, and international science in general is developing in a way of cooperation. Yeah, this is very important today. And we see that international trade is developing, and digital trade, for example, links more countries between each other, right? And that's also, we see actually the possibilities to be in Zoom and online, to make a conference online, gives us the opportunities to share the expertise from different countries. It was a great pleasure to listen to various perspectives from all BRICS countries' representatives. And thank you for organizers here to disseminate this information between all BRICS states. And thank you to share this information from all over the world. That's I think, a very important issue to develop the science, yeah, to develop the research. It's actually a lot of needs, yeah, to develop our research, and I'm proud that we are doing that. I have already give a link in the chat to our journals. We are free to join, and I think that it's a great step in the developing, actually very important and modern agenda for international trade. Yeah, we picked up a very important questions for all our countries. Yeah, because still trade is the main, let's say, the historical and logical, the first form of international economic cooperation. And then we analyze trade, we understand how actually the world is developing. And that's why it's twice important to see the tendencies in the international trade. And I'm very pleased to listen to have new ideas as well for myself in order to study better and in a different ways the international trade development. Thank you very much, and thank you for Irina and Valeria to organize together this event.
Thank you, Alexander. So thank you all, and we hope to see you again in our next events. Please join, don't hesitate. And for now, I'm saying goodbye to everyone. We hope to see you again. So bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
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 Bye.
Bye.
Bye.